As we have seen, Alice in Wonderland is a fantasy novel and it tells us about adventure of a little girl called Alice. The lesson A Mad Tea Party is an extract from this novel, uh, Alice in Wonderland. We are going to read the and understand it with the words. There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, deep sleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head. Very uncomfortable for the dormouse, thought Alice. Only as it's asleep, I suppose it doesn't mind. You can see on the page number 9090 how they were sitting, and like a cushion, like a cushion, fast sleeps, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it, which we have read. The table was a large one, as we can see on page number 90, but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it. No room, no room, they cried out when they saw Alice coming. The plenty of room, said Alice indignantly, and she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table. Now, have some wine, the Marchia said in an encouraging tone. Wine, it is one of the drink over there. Alice looked all round the table, but there was nothing on it but tea. I don't see any wine, she remarked. This isn't any, said the Marcher. All the communication is going on or between these people, those who are around the table. Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it, said Alice angrily. Now, civil means well mannered and behaved. It wasn't very civil of you to sit down with being invited, said the Marcher. I didn't know it was your table, said Alice. It's late for a great many more than three. Your hair wants cutting, said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with a great curiosity, and this was his first speech. Curiosity means, you understand, no? Carefully. Here, carefully. You should learn not to make personal remarks, Alice said with some severity. It's very rude. The Hatter opened his eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was, why is a raven like a writing desk? Come, we shall have some fun now, thought Alice. I'm glad they have begun asking. Do you mean that you think you can find out the answer to it? Said the Marcher. Exactly so, said Alice. Then you should say what you mean, the Marcher went on. Alice hastily replied. At least, at least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know. Not the same thing, a bit, said the hatter. You might just as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see. You might just as well say, added the marcher, that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like. The communication between them it's going on, and they said, you might just as well say, added the dormouse, who seemed to be talking in his sleep, that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe. It is the same thing with you, said the hatter, and here the conversation dropped, and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought over all she could remember about ravens and writing desk, which wasn't much. Have you guessed the riddles yet? The hatter said, turning to Alice again. No, I gave it up, Alice replied. What's the answer? I haven't the slightest idea, said the hatter. Nor I, said the marcher. Alice sighed wearily, or verily. Verily means physically and mentally stand. I think you might do something better with the time, she said, than waste it in asking riddles that have no answer. If you knew time as well as I do, said the hatter, you wouldn't talk about busting it. It's him. I don't know what you mean, said Alice. Of course you don't, the hatter said, tossing his head contemptuously. I dare say you never ever even spoke to time. Now you can see on the page number 90 in the color page, uh, Alice sat in armchair, others looking towards Dormouse in a deep sleep. See, perhaps not, Alice cautiously replied. Cautiously means carefully. But I know I have to beat time when I learn music. Ah, that accounts for it, said the hatter. He won't stand beating now. If you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you liked with the clock. For instance, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just time to begin lesson. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and round goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner. Twinkling means a very short time. I only wish it was the march here said to itself in a whisper. Deve, whisper means speaking something in a silent way, or gossips. That would be grand, certainly, said Elias thoughtfully. But then I shouldn't be hungry for it. You know, not at first, perhaps, said the hatter, but you could keep it to half past one as long as you liked. A bright idea came into Eli's head. Is that is that the reason so many tea things are put out here? She asked. Yes, that's it, said the hatter with a sigh. It's always tea time, and we have no time to wash the things between whiles. You can say? Thing between whiles means it is a phrase between two occasions in between two specified times. Then you keep moving round, I suppose, said Alice. Exactly so, said the hatter, as the things gets. But what happens when you come to the beginning again? Alice ventured to ask. Suppose we change the subject, the March hare interrupted, yawning. I'm getting tired of this. I owed the young lady tells us a story. I'm afraid I don't know one, said Alice, rather alarmed at the proposal. Then the Dormouse shall. They both cried, wake up, Dormouse, and they pinched it on both sides at once. The Dormouse slowly opened his eyes. I wasn't asleep, he said in a hoarse, feeble voice. Hoarse means, you know that having a rough voice, and feeble means being very weak. I heard every word you fellows were saying. You can see some words given, hard words you have to write in the notebook, and twice you have to read the lesson. Then you can understand it easily, or write hard words. Pointers is given. You have to write pointers 1 to 3, and you can show me when you will come to the school. Thank you very much.